trip seemed sinister and doomed. We drove on. Stan's arm got worse. We'd stop at the first hospital and have him get a shot of penicillin. We passed Castle Rock, came to Colorado Springs at dark. The great shadow of Pikes Peak loomed to our right. We bowled down the Pueblo Highway. I've hitched thousands and thousands of times on this road, said Dean. I hid behind that exact wire fence there one night when I suddenly took fright for no reason whatsoever. We all decided to tell our stories, but one by one, and Stan was first. We've got a long way to go, preambled Dean, and so you must take every indulgence and deal with every single detail you can bring to mind. And still, it won't all be told. Easy, he cautioned Stan, who began telling his story. You've got to relax, too. Stan swung into his life story as we shot across the dark. He started with his experiences in France, but to round out ever-growing difficulties, he came back and started at the beginning with his boyhood in Denver. He and Dean compared times they'd seen each other zooming around on bicycles. One time, you've forgotten, I know. Arapaho Garage, recall? I bounced a ball at you on the corner, and you knocked it back to me with your fist, and it went to the sewer. Grammar days. Now recall? Stan was nervous and feverish. He wanted to tell Dean everything. Dean was now arbiter, old man, judge, listener, approver, nodder. Yes, go on, please. We passed Walsenburg. Suddenly we passed Trinidad, where Chad King was somewhere off the road in front of a campfire with perhaps a handful of anthropologists, and of course, of yore, he too was telling his life story, and never dreamed we were passing at that exact moment on the highway, headed for Mexico, telling our own stories. Oh, sad American night. Then we were in New Mexico and passed the rounded rocks of Raton and stopped at a diner, ravingly hungry for hamburgers, some of which we wrapped in a napkin to eat over the border below. The whole vertical state of Texas lies before us, Sal, said Dean. Before we made it horizontal, every bit as long. We'll be in Texas in a few minutes and won't be out till tomorrow this time and won't stop driving. Think of it. We drove on. Across the immense plain of night lay the first Texas town, Dalhart, which I crossed in 1947. It lay glimmering on the dark floor of the earth 50 miles away. The land by moonlight was all mesquite and wastes. On the horizon was the moon. She fattened, she grew huge and rusty. She mellowed and rolled, till the morning star contended and dews began to blow in our windows, and still we rolled. After Dalhart, empty cracker box town, we bowled for Amarillo, and reached it in the morning among windy, panhandle grasses that only a few years ago waved around a collection of buffalo tents. Now there were gas stations and new 1950 jukeboxes and immense ornate snouts and 10-cent slots and awful songs. All the way from Amarillo to Childress, Dean and I pounded plot after plot of books we'd read into Stan, who asked for it because he wanted to know. At Childress in the hot sun, we turned directly south on the lesser road and highballed across abysmal wastes to Paducah, Guthrie, and Abilene, Texas. Now Dean had to sleep, and Stan and I sat in the front seat and drove. The old car burned and bopped and struggled on. Great clouds of gritty wind blew at us from shimmering spaces. Stan rolled right along with stories about Monte Carlo and Cap-sur-Mer and the blue places near Menton where dark-faced people wandered among white walls. Texas is undeniable. We burned slowly into Abilene and all woke up to look at it. Imagine living in this town 1,000 miles from cities. Whoop, whoop, over there by the tracks, old town Abilene, where they shipped the cows and shot it up for gumshoes and drank red-eye. Look out there, yelled Dean, out our window, and his mouth contorted like W.C. Fields. He didn't care about Texas or any place. Red-faced Texans paid him no mind and hurried along the burning sidewalks. We stopped to eat on the highway south of town. Nightfall seemed like 1,000,000 miles away as we resumed for Coleman and Brady, the heart of Texas only. Wildernesses of brush with an occasional house near a thirsty creek and a 50-mile dirt road detour and endless heat. Old Dobie, Mexico is a long way away, said Dean sleepily. in the back seat. So, keep her rolling, boys, and we'll be kissing Senorita's badon, because this old Ford can roll if you know how to talk to her and ease her along, except the back end's about to fall. But don't worry about it till we get there. And he went to sleep. I took the wheel and drove to Fredericksburg, and here again I was crisscrossing the old map again. Same place Mary Lou and I held hands on a snowy morning in 1949. And where was Mary Lou now? Blow! Yelled Dean in a dream. And I guess he was dreaming of Frisco jazz and maybe Mexican mambo to come. Stan talked and talked. Dean had wound him up the night before, and now he was never going to stop. He was in England by now, relating adventures hitchhiking on the English road, London to Liverpool with his hair long and his pants ragged, and strange British truck drivers giving him lifts in glooms of the Europe void. We were all red-eyed from the continual mistral winds of old Texas. There was a rock in each of our bellies, and we knew we were getting there slowly. The car pushed 40 with shuddering effort. From Fredericksburg, we descended the great western high plains. Moths began smashing our windshield. Getting down into the hot country now, boys, the desert rats and the tequila. And this is my first time this far south in Texas, added Dean with wonder. God damn, this is where my old man comes in the wintertime, sly old bum. Suddenly we were in absolutely tropical heat at the bottom of a 5-mile long hill, and up ahead we saw the lights of old San Antonio. You had the feeling all this used to be Mexican territory indeed. Houses by the side of the road were different, gas stations, beater, fewer lamps. Dean excitedly and decidedly took the wheel to roll us into San Antonio. We entered town with a wilderness of Mexican rickety southern shacks without cellars and with old rocking chairs on the porch. We stopped at a mad gas station to get a grease job. Mexicans were standing around in the hot light of the overhead bulbs that were blackened by valley summer bugs, reaching down into a soft drink box and pulling out beer bottles and throwing the money to the attendant. Whole families lingered around doing this. All around there were shacks and drooping trees and a wild cinnamon smell in the air. Frantic teenage Mexican girls came by with boys. "Whoo!" yelled Dean. "Si, mañana!" Music was coming from all sides, and all kinds of music. Stan and I drank several bottles of beer and got high. We were already almost out of America, and yet definitely in it, and in the middle of where it's maddest. Hot rods blew by. San Antonio, ah-ha! Now, men, listen to me. We might as well goof a couple of hours in San Antonio, and so we will go and find a hospital clinic for Stan's arm. You and I, Sal, will cut across and get these streets dug. Look at those houses across the street. You can see straight into the front room and all the pretty daughters laying around with True Love magazines. Whee! Come on, let's go. We drove around aimlessly a while and asked people for the nearest hospital clinic. It was near downtown where things looked more sleek and American. Several semi-skyscrapers and many neon and chain drugstores, yet with cars crashing through from the dark around town as if there were no traffic laws. We parked the car in the hospital driveway, and I went with Stan to see an intern while Dean stayed in the car and changed. The hall of the hospital was full of poor Mexican women, some of them pregnant, some of them sick or bringing their little sick kiddies. It was sad. I thought of poor Terry and wondered what she was doing now. Stan had to wait an entire hour till an intern came along and looked at his swollen arm. There was a name for the infection he had, but none of us bothered to pronounce it. They gave him a shot of penicillin. Meanwhile, Dean and I went out to dig the streets of Mexican San Antonio. It was fragrant and soft, the softest air I'd ever known, and dark, and mysterious, and buzzing. Sudden figures of girls in white bandanas appeared in the humming dark. Dean crept along and said not a word. "Oh, this is too wonderful to do anything," he whispered. "Let's just creep along and see everything. Look, look, a crazy San Antonio pool shack." We went in. A dozen boys were shooting pool at 3 tables, all Mexicans. Dean and I bought Cokes and shoved nickels in the jukebox and played Wynoni Blues Harris and Lionel Hampton and Lucky Millinder and jumped. Meanwhile, Dean warned me not to watch. "Dig now. out of the corner of your eye, and as we listen to Wynoni blow about his baby's pudding, and as we also smell the soft air, as you say, dig the kid, the crippled kid, shooting pool at table one, the butt of the joint's jokes, you see? He's been the butt of all his life. The older fellows are merciless, but they love him. The crippled kid was some kind of malformed midget with a great, big, beautiful face, much too large, in which enormous brown eyes moistly gleamed. Don't you see, Sal? A San Antonio Mex Tom Snark. The same story the world over, see? They hit him on the ass with a cue. Ha ha! Hear them laugh, you see? He wants to win the game. He's bet 4 bits. Watch, watch. We watched as the angelic young midget aimed for a bank shot. He missed. The other fellows roared. Ah, man, said Dean. And now watch. They had the little boy by the scruff of the neck and were mauling him around, playful. He squealed. He stalked out in the night, but not without a backward, bashful, sweet glance. Ah, man. I'd love to know what that gone little cat, and what he thinks, and what kind of girls he has. Oh, man, I'm high on this air. He wandered out and negotiated several dark, mysterious blocks. Innumerable houses hid behind her damp, almost jungle-like yards. We saw glimpses of girls in front rooms, girls on porches, girls in the bushes with boys. I never knew this mad San Antonio. Think what Mexico will be like. Let's go, let's go! We rushed back to the hospital. Stan was ready and said he felt much better. We put our arms around him and told him everything we'd done. And now we were ready for the last 150 miles to the magic border. We leaped into the car and off. I was so exhausted by now I slept all the way through Dilley and Ensenal to Laredo and didn't wake up till they were parking the car in front of a lunchroom at 2 o'clock in the morning. Ah, sighed Dean, the end of Texas, the end of America, but we don't know no more. It was tremendously hot. We were all sweating buckets. There was no night dew, not a breath of air, nothing, except billions of moths smashing at bulbs everywhere, and the low, rank smell of a hot river and the night nearby, the Rio Grande, that begins in cool Rocky Mountain dales and ends up fashioning world valleys to mingle its heats with the Mississippi muds and the Great Gulf. Laredo was a sinister town that morning. All kinds of cab drivers and border rats wandered around, looking for opportunities. There weren't many, it was too late. It was the bottom and dregs of America where all the heavy villains sink, where disoriented people have to go to be near a specific elsewhere they can slip into unnoticed. Contraband brooded in the heavy syrup air. Cops were red-faced and sullen and sweaty, no swagger. Waitresses were dirty and disgusted. Just beyond, you could feel the enormous presence of whole great Mexico, and almost smell the billion tortillas frying and smoking in the night. We had no idea what Mexico would really be like. We were at sea level again, and when we tried to eat a snack, we could hardly swallow it. We wrapped it up in napkins for the trip anyway. We felt awful and sad, but everything changed when we crossed the mysterious bridge over the river and our wheels rolled on official Mexican soil. Though it wasn't anything but carway for a border inspection. Just across the street, Mexico began. We looked with wonder. To our amazement, it looked exactly like Mexico. It was 3 in the morning, and fellows in straw hats and white pants were lounging by the dozen against battered, pocky storefronts. Look at those cats, whispered Dean. Ooh, he breathed softly. Wait, wait. The Mexican officials came out grinning and asked, please, if we would take out our baggage. We did. We couldn't take our eyes from across the street. We were longing to rush right up there and get lost in those mysterious Spanish streets. It was only Nuevo Laredo, but it looked like Holy Lhasa to us. Man, those guys are up all night, whispered Dean. We hurried to get our papers straightened. We were warned not to drink tap water now that we were over the border. The Mexicans looked at our baggage in a consultant way. They weren't like officials at all. They were lazy and tender. Dean couldn't stop staring at them. He turned to me. See how the cops are in this country. I can't believe it. He rubbed his eyes. I'm dreaming. Then it was time to change our money. We saw great stacks of pesos on a table and learned that 8 of them made an American buck or thereabouts. We changed most of our money and stuffed the big rolls in our pockets with delight.